They made a grab for my ghost. After that, it was a pretty short conversation. Ikora Ray. Good evening, Guardians, and welcome to the first Vanguard podcast. Before this podcast, I spent many hours trying to figure out what I wanted to talk about, and I kind of figured the best place to start would probably be the beginning. That's right, ladies and gents, tonight we are talking lore. It should come as no surprise to anyone who has read the Grimoire that Destiny has a very extensive story, which is unfortunately only accessible via BungieNet or the companion app. Essentially, the story goes a little something like this. A very long time ago, the Traveler entered our solar system, terraforming planets until its eventual arrival at Mars. It was decided that a team would be launched to intercept the Traveler. This team was called Ares 1. They would forever go down in history as the first humans to make contact with the Traveler, and thus launch the Golden Age, where humans would spread across the solar system. To quote the Golden Age Grimoire, "The Traveler changed everything. It reshaped our solar system as decisively as it shattered our scientific and philosophical frameworks. To our ancestors, it must have been a hammer blow, a glimpse beyond the horizon of expected possibility and into a realm of transcendent power. The Traveler kindled the Golden Age, but we built it. And we remember this with pride, even after so much else has been lost. We settled our solar system and filled it with our work." The Golden Age was the peak of humanity. Life started to flourish on once uninhabitable planets. Mars, Venus, and Mercury became homes for a now expanding human race, equipped with tripled lifespans, improved technology, and a wealth of new knowledge. While colonizing Venus, ancient ruins were found, ruins older than humanity itself. These ruins belonged to the Vex, an ancient machine race capable of traveling through time. Soon after this discovery, the Exos were made. Not much is known about the Exos' initial purpose. Along with the Exos came the War Minds, a large network of computers to watch over humanity's defenses, just in case we needed them. And we did need them. The War Mind, known as Skyshock, alerted humanity of an anomaly in the far reaches of the solar system, an ancient enemy of the Traveler known only as the Darkness. The Darkness obliterated humanity's defenses, so quickly, in fact, no records remain. A fleet of humans attempted to leave Earth and escape the Darkness, as the War Mind Rasputin shut down humanity's final defenses, and went into rest, waiting to be reactivated. The Traveler did not stand idly by, and fought back against the Darkness. With one last effort, it pushed the Darkness back, but the resulting shockwave destroyed the human fleet. The exposure to both light and dark forever changed them. This was the birth of the Awoken. They built a home for themselves amongst the wreckage. They called it the Reef. In the Traveler's dying breath, it released the Ghosts, who would search the battlefield and seek out individuals, special individuals, and bring them back to fight as Guardians, to protect the remnants of humanity. These Guardians would seek to find where the Traveler came to rest. This is when the Fallen arrived. The Fallen were once a part of a great empire that was visited by a great machine. It's widely believed that this machine was the Traveler. The Fallen followed the Traveler as it left, because when it left, it destroyed their civilization as they knew it. Now scavengers, torn by houses, they began to pick at what was left of humanity by burning cities and raiding strongholds. During the collapse, as it would later be known, the Vex awoke and transformed the entirety of Mercury into a great machine in a matter of days. Its purpose is still unknown. Once the Guardians discovered the Traveler's final resting place, they began to usher the remnants of humanity to safety underneath it. This was the beginning of the last city. But as the city was forming, the Fallen attacked. They gained access through the 6 entrances to the city. Guardians fought valiantly. This battle would later be known as the Battle of 6 Fronts. As is common, the last humans had different ideas as to how the city should be controlled, and soon these differing ideas became violent, and so began the faction wars. The Guardians yet again rose up and stopped the impending civil war and installed a government formed by consensus representing the people, the Guardians, and the Traveler. Around this time the Hive arrived, and began their quest to conquer the now defenseless moon. Taking place soon after the Battle of the 6 Fronts, the Guardians naively went to take back the moon. The results can only be described as disastrous. Thousands of Guardians were slain by the Hive, and their light devoured by a single general, Crota, son of Orcs. After the Guardians retreated from the moon, Crota grew dormant, and the Hive seemed content with the moon, and so the Vanguard declared the moon off-limits. But an old warlock, Toland, grew obsessed with understanding the Hive. It drove him to insanity. He became known as Toland the Shattered, and was exiled from the last city. His last known location was leading a fire team deep into the moon's core, into the dark and dreary Hive fortress. It was at this time a single fallen leader attempted to unite the houses for an all-out attack on the last city. The largest of the houses, the House of Wolves, was intercepted by the Queen of the Reef, Mara Sov. She destroyed the dwarf planet of Ceres, decimating nearly half of their fleet and, by extension, their leader, the Kell of Wolves. Many Fallen attempted to take over as leader of the Wolves, only to be hunted and eliminated by Mara Sov. The remaining Fallen fell into Mara Sov's servitude with the assistance of Varix the Loyal, the last of House Judgment. Feeling betrayed by their lost brethren, the remaining Fallen houses carried out their attack on the last city, in an effort to reclaim their great machine. The Battle of the Twilight Gap ensued. Yet again, the Guardians were victorious, but not without great losses. A weapon was forged from the remaining armor pieces to commemorate the deceased. This weapon was Galahorn. This is around the time the main story starts. A lonesome ghost came across a special individual in the ruins of the Cosmodrome, and revived them. Quickly, you, the Guardian, and Ghost flee from the approaching Fallen, and attempt to get back to the tower, also known as the home of the Guardians. The escape does not go unnoticed. It was observed by the Stranger. Your adventures bring you back to the Cosmodrome, where you discover that the Hive have indeed spread to Earth. In an attempt to find out more, you activate the arrays, waking the Warmind Rasputin. To learn more about the Hive, you make your way to the moon, where no Guardian has stepped foot in years. Though this appeared to not be accurate, you follow the tracks of another Guardian to a Hive stronghold, the Temple of Crota. The Guardian was dead, stripped of his light. All the while, you're still being stalked by the Stranger. The speaker informs you that the Hive are performing a ritual somewhere on the moon, which is draining the Traveler of its light. You stop the ritual to discover that the Hive were using a shard of the Traveler. During your search for the ritual, the Stranger finally steps out of the shadows and makes contact with you, inviting you to rendezvous on Venus, assuming you survive the Hive. As I said at the beginning of this podcast, Destiny has a very extensive story and a very in-depth lore. Unfortunately, this is where I'm going to end until next week. In a quick summary of today's podcast, the Traveler entered our solar system and terraformed the terrestrial planets, making them habitable. Humanity colonized the planets and found ruins on Venus that belonged to the Vex. After this, the Warminds and Exos were created. Eventually, the darkness came for the Traveler, bringing with it the Collapse and the Fallen. The Guardians were born and waged war against the Fallen during the uprising of the last city. Mara Sov gains control over the House of Wolves with the assistance of Varix the Loyal, last of House Judgment. All the while, the Hive came to take over the moon. The Hive were successful, and they eventually spread to Earth, where you were found, dead, in the Cosmodrome. You were revived by Ghost and brought back to the tower. All the while, the stranger began stalking you until you eventually get to the moon, where she tells you to rendezvous on Venus. We will pick up where we left off next week. If you have an idea for a topic you'd like me to cover, send me a tweet using the hashtag VanPodTopic, or post it on the Facebook page. Links will be in the description. Thank you for listening, and don't forget to comment, subscribe, and do all the social media jazz. See you on the reset, Guardians.